Andre Pallante was fantastic for the Cardinals on Monday, but the bats fell short in Pittsburgh. What's going on, everyone, and welcome in to this edition of b-schaeff Daily. Brenden Schaeffer with you. It is Monday, July 22nd, 2024. Tonight on the show, we will be breaking down the Cardinals' 2-1 loss in Pittsburgh as Andre Pallante went 6 strong innings for the Redbirds, but the offense, well, it fell woefully short as the lone run put up by the Cardinals was a solo shot by Nolan Gorman, and a series of unfortunate events in the bottom of the 8th inning allowed the Pirates to grab a run, their second of the game, off the bullpen. John King and Pedro Pages having some contributions to that one. We'll talk about why John King was in that spot in the first place, because I got a lot of questions during the game. What's going on with JoJo Romero? Why are the Cardinals not using him in this spot? We'll at least give you what Oli Marmol had to say about that exact question, but it is a bit fair to wonder regarding JoJo Romero, what has been going on with his usage recently. We have not seen him since the All-Star break and the Cardinals resumed play after the fact. So what's going on there? We'll try to get into it with our thoughts, as well as posing the question that we teased last night on b-schaeff Daily. Erick Fedde, the name has been thrown around as a potential trade candidate. How valuable of a starting pitcher is this guy going to be on the trade market with just about a week before the deadline? Will we see him moved, and what could it cost the Cardinals? There was a recent blog post by a Chicago White Sox fan that I happened to stumble across, and I think it's kind of interesting to lay some groundwork for some of what folks on that side of the aisle could be thinking in terms of what they're hoping to get for Erick Fedde. Sometimes looking at the fan recommendations is not maybe the most valuable thing, but I always think if you're looking at the other side and the Cardinals fans are saying, hey, we want Erick Fedde, what would a White Sox fan say in terms of, well, here's what we're hoping our team gets for Erick Fedde? I think can honestly be a valuable exercise, and short of having some real reporting on what the White Sox and Cardinals talks might be after Bob Nightingale reported over the weekend that the Cardinals had strong interest in Fedde, maybe we'll just go this route and talk about some of the names that were mentioned in this recent blog post, which of them I agree with the Cardinals potentially including, and which of them I might say are no contest. They're not going to be discussed in the context of Erick Fedde. So all of that and more coming up on b-schaeff Daily tonight. If you like daily Cardinals coverage in podcast and YouTube video form, this is the place to be. Hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. Brenden Schaeffer, St. Louis Cardinals writer, coming at you with a new Cardinals podcast every single day. We did just come off a stretch where we missed like 4 days in a row because I was on vacation in Florida. That's the first time anything like that has happened all year. Other than that, it has been a daily run on the YouTube channel. So appreciate you guys for hopping on board, and there's no better time to do it. Lots of trade talks and rumors and reporting and, you know, all that good stuff will be shared on this channel over the next week. So you couldn't be getting in at a better time. Click like on this video and also check out some of the links in our video description, like the brand new Discord and the YouTube membership that are also available to you. Okay, let's go ahead, though, and get into a conversation about this game. Cardinals lose it on Monday night 2-1 to the Pirates. And, man, the timing to have a game like this, a loss like this, is really unfortunate when you realize that Paul Skeens is pitching on Tuesday night against Lance Lynn. Cardinals are 4 games above 500. The Pirates are 2 games up on 500 now at 51-49. Cardinals 52-48, just a game ahead of Pittsburgh. If the Cardinals lose to Paul Skeens on Tuesday night, they will be in a deadlock with the Pirates in not only the division standings but the wild card race as well. So if the Cardinals are serious about trying to make this playoff thing happen, I think it's incumbent upon them to make some moves over the next week. John Mozeliak needs to be scouring the potential in the trade market to be able to improve this team because, man, that wild card race is going to be tight. As of right now, the Cardinals are still in a wild card spot. I'm recording this a little bit after 11 p.m., so there may be some teams still finishing up on the West Coast. I haven't really been checking the other scores tonight as I sat down to record. But the Padres, a couple of games up on 500. The Diamondbacks, a game up. Pirates, 2 games up. The Mets, 3 games up on 500. As we talked about last night, that's a 4-pack of teams chasing down the Cardinals, and really only one of those 4 teams is going to get a spot unless the other of the 4 decides to punch the Cardinals out of the way and knock them down a peg. That's certainly something that could happen, and there's a lot of teams right behind the Cardinals sort of bidding to do it, with the Mets, Pirates, Padres, and D-backs all within a game and a half of St. Louis right now. So Cardinals need to take seriously, I think, the ability and the opportunity to improve their team over the coming days. John Mozeliak kind of radio silent in terms of what we have heard from the Cardinals side of things as far as what they might be looking to do, but that is very standard. The Cardinals do not talk very openly about what their plans are. They hope to just do some actions and be able to talk about them after the fact. But any type of rumors and reporting that we're going to see, generally not going to come from the Cardinals in terms of that information leaking out. That's always been the way that John Mozeliak's front offices have operated, and I don't expect it to be any different this time around. But as it pertains to Monday's game, 2-1 loss in a game where you had your number 5 starter going to begin the series, and you know you're going to have to go with a bullpen game on Wednesday because of the doubleheader Saturday. That's the way it's going to line up. It'll be Lance Lynn, Paul Skeens on Tuesday. It's not a pitching matchup that is advantageous to the Cardinals because Paul Skeens is maybe already the best pitcher in baseball. So I should think the Pirates are going to be heavy favorites to win the second game of this series, and then you go into Game 3 with a bullpen game. You can kind of see where I'm going with this. Very quickly this week can get away from the Cardinals. You got that nice series win over the Braves, and that was important. But the Pirates are coming on strong, and it's getting into be some interesting territory here. The way that Monday night's game went wrong for the Cardinals is simply not being able to produce enough offensively. They got a solo home run off the foul pole from Nolan Gorman in the 5th inning, and that was it. Cardinals were blanked the rest of this game by Mitch Keller, who did a really nice job throwing 7 innings of one-run baseball. And then it does kind of strike you the way that the Cardinals and the Pirates are built similarly this season. Bullpen of Aroldis Chapman and David Bednar, 2 pretty good relief pitchers, not having unreal seasons. Bednar racked up his 18th save, but his ERA is up near 5. But historically has been a very, very viable closing pitcher for the Pittsburgh Pirates. And we know Aroldis Chapman has been around for a long time. He's got the ERA down below 4 at 3.93, but the Cardinals have simply never been able to hit him. And it was no different tonight in his 8th inning of work, and then Bednar got the 9th, gave up a hit, but left Nolan Gorman standing there at the plate, flailing at strike 3. I saw Gorman catch quite a bit of flack on social media for that final at bat, and look, it was indeed a bad one, but literally nobody did anything tonight but him, so I just kind of chalk it up to is what it is from the Gorman perspective. If you have a solo home run in a game, sure, it only provides 1 run, but it's not your fault the guys weren't on in front of you when you decided to hit one. Overall, though, the offense just has to be better. First base is kind of where guys seem to go to die on this team. Cardinals had 7 hits on the night, reached base via walk a couple of times, but they only come up with 1 total run, as I mentioned. And when you look at RISP, they just didn't have a ton of opportunities with RISP. 0 for 3 with RISP, but 7 left on base. They don't get guys into scoring position as often as they need to, and we see it a couple of times where it's maybe back-to-back singles that do it. You get a guy on first and third, maybe first and second from hitting a couple of singles, and they don't find a way to get that big hit to drive in the runs. That's sometimes the story for the Cardinals, and it certainly was tonight. But I want to talk about the pitching perspective as well, because what Andre Pallante gave the Cardinals in this game should have been more than enough to have earned him a W on the evening. And it feels like there needs to be a shift in the way we talk about the Cardinals' needs at the deadline, specific to starting pitcher, because I feel like the expectation a lot of Cardinals fans have is, if the Cardinals get a starting pitcher, it's just going to be a back end of the rotation type of guy for depth, right? For some protection in case they need it down the stretch to make sure they can get through the final couple of months. This has been a tried and true way of going about things for the Cardinals in recent years, because it always seems like they're coming up to the deadline a starter or 2 short, and they fill the hole with a stopgap, they plug it up, and call it a good day. I feel like that's not really the need, though, for the Cardinals right now. If you're ranking the needs of the Cardinals at the deadline, I think a relief pitcher is number 1, a guy with leverage experience who can slot immediately in alongside the Fernandezes and the Kittredges and the JoJos of the world in the 7th or the 8th inning. And obviously tonight, John King was used in the 8th. Chris Roycroft was used in the 7th. Roycroft got through the 7th inning, gave up a couple of hits. King obviously gave it up in the 8th inning, but it was in part due to a wild pitch that I think you could have called a pass ball. They called it a wild pitch on the break. Yeah, it was a wild pitch charged against John King. I think if you asked Pedro Pajes, he would say, I need to keep that one in front of me. And then the run that scores against him is just fisted through the right side of the infield by Gonzalez of Pittsburgh, and that ended up scoring the runner from second because of the wild pitch. So I'm not even going too crazy about King's performance, but did end up giving up 3 hits in that inning, so certainly not his best day. But how often do we talk about guys that have 2.61 ERAs? It means that, every 3 or 4 outings, they're going to give up an earned run. And those numbers are still going to put guys like John King toward the top half of the league in terms of their reliever ERA. So I'm not going too crazy about it. But all that being said, I do think you need to have more quality leverage guys. That's just the way baseball in October works. Now, if you're going to get to the playoffs, it's one thing. If you're going to be expected to do anything once you get there, you've got to have a handful or better of guys that you can trust to be wipeout in the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th inning range. So I think the Cardinals need one more. A lot of teams out there probably could use one more, but that's, to me, the number one need for the Cardinals. On a day like this where they score 1 run and they look pathetic offensively, you might say, oh, it's a bat. Find some more consistency offensively, get a right-handed bat in there. I think they're pretty well balanced out, though, now, especially now with moving Goldschmidt down to the 7-hole and the way that kind of tracks everybody right, left throughout the batting order. That being said, you need those guys in the bottom of the order, the righties like Goldschmidt and even Arenado batting 5th, to be productive, and both of them have sub-700 OPSs, but I'll sound like a broken record if I keep harping on about that because, well, that's been the case all season long, and we're still kind of waiting for those guys to emerge on a deeper level, and it just hasn't really happened yet. Nolan Gorman did have the home run tonight, but had the tough strikeout to end the game, and his batting average is 206, while his OPS is 702. So, again, could be a lot more productive with the mainstays of the lineup. I think finally, though, now that the Cardinals have those big boppers, I kind of use that in parentheses, down at the 5, 7, and 8 spots in the lineup on most days, at least the lineup actually makes more sense aesthetically. It looks like more of a lineup that says, yeah, the guys that bat toward the top are your best hitters, the guys that bat toward the bottom aren't, and that's the way the season's played out, for better or for worse. Now the lineup at least reflects that. But, yeah, I'm on board if you say that grabbing a bat at the deadline would be a need. I'm just skeptical that they're going to do it because, as I've talked about over and over and over, I don't really know who you displace from the lineup and whether they're going to be bold enough to do something that, like fans have called to say, Goldschmidt, beyond just moving him down, you should move him out of the lineup. I don't know if that's something that I would do. Probably not. I'm satisfied with seeing him down at number 7 and then sort of going from there. And by the way, Goldie did have 2 base hits tonight in a 2-for-4 game, which is a lot more than anybody else can say. Even Gorman just had the 1 hit. He was the only Goldschmidt, the only multi-hit game of the day for the Cardinals with the 2-for-4. So I'm not trying to banish Paul Goldschmidt out of this lineup. I just think it's going to be hard, though, to find a lot of other obvious moves to be made. Nootbaar played center field tonight. I think that worked out okay because of Pallante on the mound. Generally, with anybody else on the mound, I just don't think it's a good solution. I'm not anti-Lars Nootbaar, but I am anti-Lars Nootbaar in center because I think the Cardinals are better built with somebody else out there and with having Nootbaar in a corner. But with some of the redundancies on the bench and for the longest time, the lefty-heavy nature of the team, it was maybe hard to find the level of offensive thump in the lineup that you need, especially when you're giving Wilson Contreras a day at DH, to find the offensive thump that you need without finding creative solutions like putting Nootbaar in center field. That's what they did today. I think, again, it works with Pallante on the mound, maybe a little bit more so than some of your less ground ball heavy starters, but that's the route that they've been going recently, putting him out there a little bit more when the situation dictates it. But all in all, if you can get an additional bat at the deadline, I think that would be great. I just don't know how likely it is. But then we have the other category of a potential deadline addition for the Cardinals, and that's a starting pitcher. But I think you can break it down into 2 categories in itself. The grab a depth piece, like we said, maybe seems like the Cardinals' MO. Grab a number 5 to be able to just add some flex seal or some emergency quick dry concrete to the bottom of your shift to try and make it whole in the event of an issue down the line, which after July 30th, trying to anticipate those issues is going to be difficult because if you have one, if you have a guy go on the IL or a guy blow up and not be effective anymore, you won't be able to do anything about it. You won't be able to add from outside the organization, and we tend to know how the Cardinals feel about their internal options in the rotation at this point. For heaven's sake, they're talking about doing a bullpen start on Wednesday, which you have a bunch of starters that are on your 40-man roster that are in Memphis. Pick one and have that guy throw 5 or 6 innings. But I digress. I just think it serves to point out that the Cardinals should probably be active in the starting pitching market at the deadline. But is grabbing a number 5 enough? And is it even necessary to grab a number 5 when you look at what Andre Pallante has been doing? Like, Pallante is the de facto number 5, but I am here to tell you that he is not performing like a number 5 starter. He's performing much better than that. After tonight's 6 innings of 1-run baseball, allowing only 3 hits and 2 walks, Andre Pallante in 9 starts this season. If I were to say the ERA and you haven't heard it yet, I think it would blow your mind a little bit. Even though you've been watching these games, if you don't know it off the top of your head, Cardinals fans, I think you're going to be surprised with how good Andre Pallante has been. But pause the video real quick. Make your guess. Starters ERA for Pallante this year in 9 starts. Are you ready? All right, I'm going to give you the answer. It's 3.42. 3.42 ERA for Pallante in the 9 starts that he's made. Now, his overall numbers aren't as good as that because he had a 6 ERA as a reliever before he was sent down and then brought back up as a starter more recently. 3.42 ERA as a starter. That's lower than Sonny Gray's ERA for the season. Andre Pallante is not pitching as a number 5, and he's not pitching as the type of guy who we should basically be willing to say, oh, well, if they get a starter at the deadline, they can bump Pallante to the bullpen. Wrong. If the Cardinals know what's good for him, they will keep Andre Pallante in the rotation regardless of what they do at the deadline. This team doesn't need a deadline move that will displace Andre Pallante from the rotation to the bullpen. To me, he has earned his spot and should not be anywhere near the chopping block, even if the Cardinals do make a move. Now, that complicates things, right? Because you'd like to have the additional depth in case something happens to one of your 5, but you also are essentially understanding you don't really have anywhere to put that guy if it's truly like a number 5. Like the Dodgers have DFA'd James Paxton, and he's got an ERA around 4.5. And I saw a Cardinals fan on Twitter say, well, why won't the Cardinals should claim him? Okay, sure, and probably won't really cost you anything because you can work something out. If he's been DFA'd, that means that, he could be claimed. I think the salary of whatever James Paxton's making is probably such that the Dodgers would basically just be happy for you to pay him and he go away for them. If that's where they're at with him. He's not pitching particularly poorly, but he's not pitching great either. 4.5 ERA. My point is, if you picked him up, what do you do with a guy like that? Whether it's Paxton specifically or just you're targeting a guy like him, a veteran, mid-30s veteran with a 4.5 ERA. I don't put that guy in my rotation above Andre Pallante. I just flat out don't. And then it's like, okay, well, isn't he your number 5? Yeah, I think the Cardinals probably view it that way. They shouldn't. If I'm looking at spots in the rotation, I'm not saying that there should be others that are up for grabs necessarily, but like I'm watching Lance Lynn tomorrow closely. You can look at his last 4 starts. 3 of them have been really good. 6+ innings, 2 or fewer runs. But then there was the one where he gave up 10 runs. And it's just, okay, that's a blip on the radar. 5 starts ago. Now we're going all the way back to mid-June for this, but he had a 6-run outing against the Marlins. Like, Lance Lynn has had some blow-up spots. Now, Michaelis has had his blow-ups. Sonny Gray has certainly had his blow-ups. My point is, though, just kind of the way that we think about these different guys, I don't think we talk about Lance Lynn being on the potential chopping block if the Cardinals had a starter at the deadline, whereas Pallante just feels like that would be the natural thing they would do, or maybe even to some people should do. Not to me, though. I see what Pallante has been doing and believe that is everything the Cardinals could be hoping to get from him. I mean, over his last 4 starts now, dating back to toward the end of June, he had a 5 1/3 inning shutout outing against the Reds, and then he was in Pittsburgh on July 4th, 7 innings, 1 run. So that would maybe lend to some confidence the Cardinals had coming into this outing tonight, and basically did it again with a 3-hit outing and got through 6 despite not being very efficient to begin this game. And then it was the game against the Royals for Pallante prior to the All-Star break. Remember, that was game 1 of the doubleheader where they stretched him into the 7th inning. Didn't pitch great, but 6 1/3 innings, 4 runs allowed. Again, we are talking about if those are your expectations for the number 5, should feel pretty good about that. In the 9 starts he's had, there's really been only 2 quote-unquote bad ones from Pallante. One was the game in Houston where he really was bad. 3 innings and 6 runs, just did not have great command, and the Astros were kind of battering him around a bit. It was his 2nd start. It's a good thing the Cardinals left him in after that one, though, and didn't give up on the experiment right then and there, because he's been really solid since then. The only other game in which he allowed more than the 4 runs that he allowed against Kansas City, which beyond that game, there's really just been the Houston game, the Royals game, and then the Rickwood Field game. He was charged with 5 earned runs, but remember, that was inherited runners that I think it was Andrew Kittredge allowing in the 6th to score. So, I mean, if Pallante is given the chance to maybe stay in that game, he could have easily gone 6-3, maybe gets a double play ball, something like that. I know it's woulda, coulda, shoulda, but if you look at Andre Pallante, he's had 9 starts. 3 of them have been a little rougher in terms of 4 or more earned runs. The other 6 have been, and this is almost unbelievable, but the other 6 have been 1 or fewer earned run against Pallante. 6 starts have been that way. And the one against the Cubs at Wrigley, he allowed 2 total runs. Only 1 was earned. I believe that was the game that Roycroft came in and made the error in the 4th inning when they pulled him after 50-some-odd pitches. So Pallante, the majority of the time, has been really, really good. And tonight was one that was sneaky good. It kind of caught up to you when you didn't see it coming, because he was at 65 pitches after 3 innings and ended up throwing the next 3 on about 33 pitches total. Ended up at 98 tonight after 6. Was crazy efficient the final 3 innings of his outing, and has the total season ERA down below 4 to 3.92. Pallante's not a number 5 starter. He's not somebody you should be looking to replace if you're the Cardinals. I'm not saying that I'd fire him up in game 2 of the playoffs. No, he's probably not going to make a playoff start unless the Cardinals get into a longer series, and even then they're going to just probably use him as more of a utility knife and be a little bit creative with when they deploy him. Fair or unfair, I think that's the box that Andre Pallante lives in, at least this year for the St. Louis Cardinals. But there's no denying the job that he's done, and tonight he should have been given a win. He should have been granted a W, but the Cardinal offense did not do its job. Pallante did his. 6 innings, 1 run, 5 base runners. Heck yeah, he was great. And frankly, he has been great in a starting role. When I can tell you his ERA as a starter has been better than Sonny Gray's ERA for the season, that might say a little bit more about Sonny Gray than you'd want it to, given the way he started was, looking like he was going to be another Cy Young candidate season, and that has not materialized. But he's got a 3.5 ERA. Pallante's just been better. Granted, in a smaller sample, only 9 starts for Andre Pallante, but he's been very, very good. I would not look to replace him. The question is, do the Cardinals figure out a way to find a veteran that if you bring in a guy who's more of a number 5 starter, could he slide into a long relief bullpen role for a little bit and then just kind of be around if you need him? Or do they already have a kind of sort of guy like that in Matthew Liberatore? Would you trust a 35-year-old doing it instead of Libby as a 24-year-old or whatever he is? I don't really know the answer to that, but that's where it gets a little bit tricky. I don't think it's necessarily for the betterment of the team if they go out and sign or trade for a number 5 who takes somebody else out of your rotation that's been doing a nice job. So I don't really expect the Cardinals to go that route, but maybe things can change over the next week that would make me disagree with that own opinion of myself. But what would be interesting is if the Cardinals could go and get a number 2, a guy that is starting game 2 of a wild card series, and you could potentially try to push the season deeper into October as a result of just having some better pitching plans. But I don't really know whether or not that guy is obviously available to the Cardinals on the market. I think those guys may end up being traded, but for what is going to be the question, because the Cardinals do not tend to be the team that I expect to stomach giving up top prospects. And the other problem is they don't really have a bunch of top prospects anyway. So the few names that we would look at and say, oh, no, not that guy, not this guy, other MLB teams are going to be saying, well, those are really all that you have. So what would compel us to trade you, Garrett Crochet? Well, maybe nothing. Even maybe Erick Fedde is one that could be tricky if the Cardinals are unwilling to part with some of the more premium names. but we'll get into that conversation a little bit later on in the show. I want to, before we do, and just a quick heads up, no Down on the Farm today because it is Monday and there is no minor league baseball on Mondays. They all play Tuesday through Sunday, and then the games they don't happen on Mondays. So that's why no Down on the Farm tonight, for those who have been wondering. But Down on the Farm is sponsored by Hastings Layers Premium Eggs. So if you need some eggs and you're in Southwest Indiana, Hastings Layers has got you covered. And my guy Mark sent me a couple of T-shirts tonight that I will be wearing on a future live stream to rep the brand. So appreciate that. But just wanted to explain why you won't hear me mooing like a cow later on in the podcast. Before we get into talk about Fedde Wap, though, let's talk JoJo Romero. Why not JoJo Romero for that 8th inning? It ends up being John King instead. And as we mentioned, Cardinals lose the game. They get a base runner on, wild pitch, and then the base hit by Gonzalez to score the run. 2-1 at that point. Couldn't get anything mustered in the top of the 9th inning, and the Cardinals end up dropping the game as a result. Why not JoJo Romero in that spot? We have not seen JoJo pitch in quite a long time. It was before the All-Star break, and not like right before it either. It was during that doubleheader on Saturday, July 13th, that we last saw JoJo Romero pitch. You have the entire series against the Braves where we do not see him, and then does not pitch in the game tonight in Pittsburgh, when it would have seemed that the 8th inning would have been the obvious spot for him if he's your chief go-to 8th inning lefty, and the game is tied in the 8th inning. Like Derek Shelton of the Pirates used Chapman and Bednar, his top relievers. Oli Marmol went to Roycroft and John King. Was he trying to be too cute with it? Is there something wrong with JoJo Romero health-wise? Oli was asked about the decision post-game, and we do want to give you his answer, the audio courtesy of Bally Sports Midwest, because I think it's valuable for people that may have been wondering, why not JoJo? Well, Oli did have an explanation for it.
John King has been effective for you guys all year long. Tie game, though, in the 8th is usually when we see JoJo. What led you to King in that spot?
A couple of things. We talked through the game earlier today, and it played out exactly as we talked through it, as far as Roycroft getting that lane all the way through McCutcheon, and then if we were leading off an inning at Reynolds, you look at the history there. The last couple times JoJo's faced Reynolds, it's loud contact. The crews walk off. They've taken some good swings off of JoJo, so giving them a different look there with King. Both Reynolds and Cruz are high ground ball guys, so I'll take my shot there. He got ground balls. They were just not at people until the Hayes one there for the double play, but he did his job. Unfortunately, sometimes his contact's not going to be at people. Yeah.
So that was Oli Marmol's explanation, courtesy of Bally Sports Midwest, for why we did not see JoJo Romero in that tie game in the 8th. We instead saw John King, another Cardinal lefty, and as Oli said, you get some ground balls. It's just not contact right at people, and ultimately costs them the run. I think the wild pitch obviously played a part, because if that run had not already scored, maybe you play out the rest of the inning a little bit differently. I know he did give up another hit after that to make it 1st and 3rd, but I would still kind of wonder, if not for the wild pitch, do you get out of that inning unscathed? Who could know with the butterfly effect? But it was definitely interesting to see King rather than Romero. But as you heard Oli Marmol say, he's looking at some of the matchups, and this is stuff that they plotted out earlier in the day. And that might make some people upset, might rub you the wrong way, because they say, oh, you have to respond to the moment, the way the game is going. Don't just look at your iPad. Don't just look at... To me, with all due respect, if you're saying that as a fan, I think you're full of doo-doo in your brain. Let me clarify. If you're saying that specific to this situation, that Oli Marmol, when he says, oh, well, why were they talking about it earlier in the day? They should have been letting the game unfold and having a feel for it. No. That would be ill-prepared if that was the way they were going about it. They talk about it earlier in the day so that if the game plays out exactly as they think it might from a pitching plan perspective, they know already what they're looking to do, what their goal is. And if there was a lefty lane, again, Oli uses this language often, talking about the lane for different relievers. Helsley's lane is the 9th inning. Yes, there could be circumstances where tied in the 9th inning at home, you would see Ryan Helsley, because you know that maybe they walk off the game and you don't end up needing a closer that night, right? Like, that's the way it works at home. On the road, yeah, tied in the ninth inning, maybe it would have been Ryan Helsley tonight. We didn't end up getting that far. Pirates didn't have to bat in the ninth, so we didn't get to see what that would have looked like. But, yeah, using Roycroft and then King in a tie game late leverage situation, rested enough bullpen, a little bit odd. A little bit odd on the surface. But when there's an explanation to say, look, the contact that JoJo Romero has recently given up against this team and some of the batters that were potentially due up in that inning is such that we felt like we wanted to give him a different look because kind of have shown to be some bad matchups for JoJo Romero. Brian Reynolds has hit him well. O'Neal Cruz had the walk-off hit against him. Believe that was the game on July the 3rd when the Cardinals were facing the Pirates in Pittsburgh the last time. So there's an explanation for it. And it does make sense that you would come up with that a little earlier in the day. It's not because they're just looking at their iPads. It's because it's the strategic managing that I would hope any team would be doing. If I'm invested in a team, that is the type of stuff I would hope that they're thinking through at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and not 9:30 at night, trying to figure out, hey, is this going to be the right move? No, you should want to have a game plan going in, and the game plan didn't work out. Again, their plan was keep these guys on the ground, and ultimately, he struck out O'Neal Cruz. Brian Reynolds got the base hit. The wild pitch ended up being the thing that was costly. And then that, by the way, the wild pitch setting up the runner on second base, does that exaggerate the shift at all because you're holding the runner on a little bit at second base trying to figure out a way to keep him there? Does that ball that gets punched by Nick Gonzalez through the right side of the infield end up scoring Brian Reynolds if Brian Reynolds is not maybe impacting where the second baseman would be standing on that? That's something else I would kind of wonder about. And then Rowdy Tellez just, he had a base hit that moved Gonzalez from first to third, but did not end up having any real impact. So I don't know. It's just one of those where I can't get too worked up about John King over JoJo when I've also been seeing Cardinals fans say, well, JoJo hasn't been as effective recently either, which has kind of been true at times. I don't think any of the guys, whether it's JoJo, whether it's Kittredge, have been as locked down nails as they were, say, like April, May, when those guys were basically untouchable and we were coining the term the triumvirate because 7th, 8th, 9th, you just knew they were untouchable to go along with Ryan Helsley. When that sentiment's already out there a little bit that JoJo hasn't been as effective, you can't say he's overworked because he hasn't pitched since July the 13th. But based on some recent events against those specific dudes who are coming up in the lineup for Pittsburgh, Reynolds led off the inning and O'Neal Cruz was up next. Maybe he was not the best matchup at the time. That was the thought process. Are they overthinking it? Are they getting spooked a little bit by a small sample size of events? That's okay if that's your thought as a Cardinal fan, and I'll even hear that argument. If JoJo's your best guy, are you so sure that a couple of isolated events, are you just going to, chalk it up to, well, Brian Reynolds and O'Neal Cruz have JoJo's number, even though matchup-wise, handedness-wise, it should be favorable enough. Reynolds a switch hitter, O'Neal Cruz a lefty, should be able to come up with some answers for those guys, right? Maybe it is a little bit overthinking to say, well, JoJo can't get those guys out, which isn't what they said. They just wanted, as you heard Oli say, wanted to give a different look in that spot. It's interesting. That's the kind of stuff that I think is compelling, and there may not be a right or wrong answer to. But I just have to push back from some of what I see regarding, well, he's just managing with the iPad. Should have known this, should have known that, shouldn't have. No, I think it's actually a mark of a good manager to be prepared and to be understanding of what the matchups are going to dictate potentially later on in the game. Those are the types of things that you talk over with your coaching staff and probably your catchers beforehand. So I think it ended up being a acceptable move, one I didn't have a huge problem with. What I would have more of an issue with is the Cardinals' inability to get things going offensively. And there are going to be games like that. Like I saw it over in the Discord tonight, some people saying, well, some teams only score one run sometimes. You play 162 games, you're going to have games where the offense doesn't go well. And you know what? The offense didn't go well in game one against the Braves on Saturday, but then they crushed it in the night game with lots of rallies, not overly reliant on the homer to get their work done. And then Sunday, they hit a bunch of home runs, which I never find to be a bad thing. to be relying on homers to score runs is great when you're hitting 4 or 5 home runs. When you are not hitting a bunch of homers, I don't necessarily think that means, oh, they just had a do or die, all or nothing approach. No, they just had a bad day offensively, and Gorman happened to hit a home run. I just think it was a bad day offensively. I do think the approach at times when you get a runner on base, it almost feels like, all right, we can tick that box off. The prerequisite for the inning has been established, and anything that happens from here is fine. Oli would have said and did say there were some moments where guys hit balls right at people, and maybe if some of those find holes, it's a different game. But it just felt like Mitch Keller finally got the better of the Cardinals, right? Like the Cardinals beat him twice already this season. I heard him say on the broadcast the only team to do that against Mitch Keller, beat him twice already in the year because he's only got 5 losses on the season. So he's been really good. Man, the Pirates, I mentioned that they're kind of built similarly to the Cardinals. Not a super robust offense, but they've got a few standouts that you definitely got to pay attention to in that lineup. They've got some guys that don't have great season numbers, but in the case of like a Nick Gonzalez tonight coming through with a clutch hit, I mean, we've seen that from guys like Ciani and guys like Pages that don't have great numbers, but they've found their moments, and tonight was a moment for Nick Gonzalez. But I also think like even rotation-wise, bullpen-wise, a lot of similarities between these two teams. And, I mean, if you pay any attention to run differential, Pirates have the better of the Cardinals because basically every MLB team does. Every National League team, I should say, has a better run differential except for 2, the Rockies and the Marlins. I haven't checked up on that in the last few days, but I'm assuming that with how far behind the Cardinals were, that stat still holds. Let me check real quick, though. The Giants are now at -32, so they're tied with the Cardinals. But the Pirates and Cubs, even with a negative differential, are better than St. Louis. The Nationals, -31. The Marlins, -151. And the Rockies. So I may have said it wrong before. Rockies, Marlins are worse. Everybody else either right around, tied, or are better than the Cardinals in the National League in run differential. So it's interesting. The Pirates are a little closer to the even Steven mark in that regard, but record-wise still trail the Cardinals by a game. Maybe not after tomorrow, though. We'll see. Paul Skeens v. Lance Lynn. The Pirates have won 8 of 10. They're red hot, and they're doing this right now without Jared Jones. He's on the injured list. But if you think about Mitch Keller, Jared Jones, Paul Skeens, I mean, that is a team that I think you'd be a little bit worried to see in a wild card series because of their front 3 in that rotation. Obviously, you would like to get Jared Jones back healthy, but Keller and Skeens, I mean, Skeens he's your game 1 starter and just absolutely with a bullet, the number 1 option. But Pirates are interesting. I'll be curious to see what they do at the deadline because they could probably stand to improve with another reliever or even a bat or 2 if they're trying to make a go of things. It seems like the Cubs won't be making a go of things, and the Reds probably into sell mode as well. I think it's a little weird that Jed Hoyer basically said, barring a win streak over the next week, anything the team does at the deadline will help them in future years. Basically, the Cubs are going to be selling. That was reported today. Jesse Rogers, the tweet that I just read, sharing that info, as did many others. So, I mean, that's great for the Cardinals because it's not that they're necessarily going to be trading with the Cubs, but one less team to maybe you have to worry about in the NL Central mix and in the wild card mix. With the Cubs only, 4 or 5 games? They're 4 games below 500. They are 9 games back of the Brewers, only 4 games out from the Cardinals, and they're talking about next year. So that would make life easier if a number of those teams in that mix actually tangibly do sell moves, like the Nationals, the Cubs, the Reds, the Giants. If all those teams want to sell, it couldn't hurt, but we'll end up seeing what happens. Cardinals lose 2-1. They need more offense. It's that simple. I don't think one game like this is a sweeping indictment of a bad offense, but I do feel like there have been more of these games than the Cardinals' fair share already this season, and as a result of that, you're a negative 32 run differential. You've got an expected win-loss total that's below 500, even though they've exceeded it, and they've lost 6 of their last 10. So Cardinals have cooled off a little bit, and I think offensively you want to continue to see a steady drumbeat that has, it at least evaded the Cardinals on Monday. And I think with Skeens coming up on Tuesday, there is some risk that could be prolonged. But before we wrap here on the show tonight, I want to get into more of the Erick Fedde conversation because he has been very good for the White Sox. And I think in the offseason, in an alternate universe, the Cardinals would already have Erick Fedde because they'd assigned him out of Korea. They scouted him. They were interested in him. But with the way that the offseason unfolded, they kind of did the stuff that was real easy in November. And they grabbed Sonny Gray after grabbing Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson. Largely, those moves have worked out okay. I think for more upside to the rotation, you maybe wouldn't have gone that route with Lynn and with Gibson. But Gibson's been so good. He's exceeded my expectations. And maybe Lynn, honestly, even with a 4.39 ERA, has fallen short of my expectations. I thought he would be more consistent, maybe, as an innings eater than what we have seen. And I'll keep in mind that I'm about to see him pitch in 18 hours or whatever it is from right now as I talk. So certainly if he continues to, 3 of his last 4 starts have been good. So if he adds another one to that ledger, maybe we're talking more favorably about Lynn tomorrow night. But I do think if the offseason had just gone a little bit differently, like I said, alternate reality version of the Cardinals, maybe Fedde's already on the team. But he went over to Korea and only spent 1 year there after being very mid with the Nationals for a 6-year career. With the Nationals, he had a 5.41 ERA in 102 games, 88 starts, and 454 innings. This year, after 1 year in Korea, he's got a 2.99 ERA with the White Sox, 111 innings, and 99 strikeouts. Those numbers in terms of ERA and working as an innings eater, better than anything the Cardinals really have, right? We talked about ERA for Sonny Gray is 3.54. Fedde is at 2.99, and the FIP of 3.52 is, I don't know exactly where the ERA and the FIP is for Sonny. I'll get that for you guys. But basically, I don't think there'd be any doubt that Erick Fedde would be a starter worth pursuing for the Cardinals. And it's not just because of this year, but because of next year as well. 2.89 FIP for Gray. So Gray's been better. I'm okay. And look, I don't think the FIP is the end-all be-all. But when you add in the strikeout production for Sonny Gray and the fact that innings-wise he's actually averaging a little bit more innings per start than Erick Fedde, I'm going to give the nod to Sonny. And Sonny would still be, even if the Cardinals had Fedde, Sonny would be my number one game one starter in the playoffs. But all that being said, Fedde would be a worthy target for the Cardinals to go and pick up because obviously it improves your rotation, I think, for next year because he's under a very affordable contract, which is going to help his trade value. $7.5 million is all he'll need to be paid next year. He's 31 years old with a season and a half of control left. The White Sox are not going to be winning anytime soon. The time is now to trade Erick Fedde. And, of course, Bob Nightingale had reported within the last couple of days that the Cardinals have a, quote, strong interest in the 31-year-old right-handed pitcher. Now, I'm reading this blog off of the website. I think it's a Chicago-based blog, Sports Mockery, the name of the blog. And this post was written by Shy Sox fan Mike. Shy Sox fan Mike. So, like I said, we're going to talk a little bit about the fan perspective of what White Sox fans might be hoping to get from a Fedde deal. And I actually think this is a very valuable exercise because we can look and say, all right, what are they hoping to get? And I won't say that Shy Sox fan Mike speaks for the entire White Sox fan base, but it's a nice, quick way to find a gauge from his blog post here. I'm going to read off some of the names and just tell you in a vacuum whether I would be willing to consider them in a Fedde deal. And obviously, me saying yes doesn't necessarily indicate, yeah, I'd trade all of these guys for Erick Fedde, but I'll talk about some of the names. Thomas Saggese on this list. 22-year-old infielder, has had a bit of a down season at AAA, but was a top 100 prospect before the season and has flashed a little bit of power as well. 11 home runs, 14 doubles on the season, and can play a little bit of everywhere in the infield. We like Saggese. We think he's a future big leaguer, maybe a role player, but I think one that has some value. I would trade him for Erick Fedde. I like Saggese quite a bit, even despite the numbers being down this year. I don't know how much value he has, but I would consider him. Cesar Prieto is another name on this list that I would also say would include in a Fedde deal. 25-year-old infielder, good numbers at AAA. But again, kind of like Saggese in that he'll play a few different positions. I don't know that he's a great fielder, I should say. Maybe primary, going to be second base if he ever gets to the next level, and is a little bit older as well, 3 years older than Saggese, 25 years old instead of 22. Also like the fact that Saggese is a right-handed bat, just in terms of a lot of what the Cardinals have. They could use more righties. Prieto is a lefty, for whatever that's worth. But yes, I would include him. How about Chase Davis? former first-round pick of the Cardinals, kind of struggling so far in his professional career. He's 22 years old. Took him out of the University of Arizona. I believe this was last summer. 21st overall. And it looks like came in Baseball Prospectus, had him as the number 101 prospect. I think they only have a top 101. But he was, according to Prospectus, the number 101 coming into the year, but has struggled with Palm Beach this season. Only a 734 OPS. I say struggled. That's okay. But when you're thinking about trying to project a guy forward, he's old for the level. It is not necessarily producing. 225 average, good on base numbers, seeing a little bit more pop from his bat, but I would say a disappointing year for sure for Chase Davis. Would I include him for Erick Fedde? I would. Even though he was just a first-round pick a year ago, 12 months ago, I think if the White Sox value him on that level, would I go Chase Davis and a lesser prospect pitching arm for Fedde? I would do that. Maybe that could surprise some people, but I think if you're the Cardinals and you've seen enough times things go wrong with your outfielders, granted, sometimes that's trading the wrong ones, but I just don't know if he's OPSing 734 at low A at Palm Beach, I'm not sure what it's going to take to get Chase Davis up to speed. I think he can end up with better numbers than that at the end of the season, but there are a lot of levels to climb for him. There have been some swing adjustments he's made. I'm not saying I'm not sold on him or that I don't believe in him. I'm saying that with everything encompassing here and knowing that Fedde would be a solid number 3 at worst in the way that we would pencil out next year's rotation for $7.5 million, I'm going to go ahead and trade Chase Davis, who I think is, even if he does turn it around, is still probably several years away from being a big league impact guy. And again, at low A, he's hitting 225. So it's just hard to project right now exactly what that's going to look like in the next couple of few years. So I like Chase Davis, but I think I would do it at this point. Would I feel differently if he was lighting it up and had been, graduated to high A or double A by now? Of course I would feel differently. So maybe it's a little bit reactionary for a guy that does not have a ton of professional plate appearances under his belt. Only 291 this year after 131 last year. But, that's starting to be some sample size for a guy that, has had played several college seasons as well. He was a 3-year college guy. So we'll see as far as he's concerned, but certainly I think it's okay to say that it's been a disappointing first full professional season for Davis. And I would trade him in a Fedde deal. Would I trade him for a rental? No. But somebody like Fedde I think is worthy of consideration. Would I add a huge pitcher to Chase Davis? No. My hope would be if I'm doing that deal, it's the White Sox are basically saying, we're a believer in the guy that you just drafted in the first round last year, and he can be the anchor to the package. We need some pitching back because everybody always does when trading quality starters. But if they view Chase Davis as that type of anchor, then I'm good with that. Is it realistic? Yeah, probably not, but you never know. They do have a little bit longer of a timeline to contention, so maybe a guy who is pretty young but could still be a couple of years away if he hits and makes good on that first-round talent and that draft capital could be interesting to the White Sox. I wouldn't poo-poo it. I think it could certainly be he could be a name that they'd be interested in. I don't really know what the Cardinals' temperature would be on moving on from Chase Davis as quickly, but I would say willing to do it if he's the anchor to a Fedde deal. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. I don't feel so strongly about it, but when I'm going down the list and naming names, obviously that's putting my takes out there, and so some of these are going to look silly down the line, I'm sure. Guys that I said I wouldn't trade, maybe they don't end up turning into anything. That's okay. I'm just kind of giving you the gauge for my temperature on some of these names right now. Jordan Walker is the next name on this list on the blog I'm reading here on the Sports Mockery website, Chicago-based blog. I would not trade Jordan Walker for Erick Fedde. That's one that I'll go down with the ship a little bit more on him relative to like how I feel about Chase Davis. Whereas like Walker dominated the lower levels of the minors and then has obviously hit a snag here, but the proof of concept of what we've seen him be, and what he was for basically a full year at the big league level last year, I'm not out on Jordan Walker where I'm going to go, yeah, trade him for Erick Fedde of all people who you could have signed for just money in the offseason before the year. Obviously, he's outperformed those expectations that people had of him then, but certainly I'm not moving Jordan Walker at this point for him. And if I'm wrong, I'll go down with the ship. That's okay. Listed in this blog as well, some interesting Cardinals pitching prospects. I'm just going to list some of the names. The way this blog post wrote it out said, based on their previous moves and current composition of the farm, it seems like the White Sox will target bats in exchange for Fedde, which would be great. I don't know that to be true or not. I just assume anytime somebody's trading a pitcher, they're going to expect pitching back. But if the White Sox feel good about where they are pitching-wise in their farm system, more power to them. I think the Cardinals would actually be a great mix, or a great fit, rather, for a trade. Like Chase Davis for Fedde. Would you do it? Let me know in the comments below. I think I would, because I think that it's valuable to have that guy locked up for a year and a half because he's been very, very solid. Am I selling low on Chase Davis if I do that deal? Very possibly. But that's no matter who you end up, like you can't kind of talk out of both sides of your mouth. If you want the Cardinals to make a deal, it doesn't happen for, Dylan Carlson and a guy that you don't want in the minor leagues, right? Like that's not the way deals work. There will be other teams, as this blog post mentions. I think it's right. Erick Fedde has exceeded all expectations, and it will soon be time to cash in. Bidding war should soon ensue. Yeah, there might be a bidding war for Erick Fedde, as crazy as it sounds. There are, you don't think the Braves would kill for Erick Fedde right now? They're starting dudes named Schellenbach, and they've got half their rotation on the IL. Braves would love to have him. Dodgers would love to have him. So I think Fedde gets moved for sure, and I'm just not entirely sure that it's going to be a price that Cardinals fans are going to feel great about, but that doesn't mean it doesn't end up being a worthwhile deal if it happens. But let me name some of the pitching prospects that they named in this post and tell you my temperature on some of them before we get out of here. If Chicago's looking for pitching, St. Louis has that too. Left-handed pitchers Quinn Matthews and Cooper Jerpy. Right-handed pitchers Tekoa Roby, Gordon Graceffo, Sam Robertson, Michael McGreevy are just some of the arms that could be up for grabs within the Cardinals system. Now, to be clear, that's not me saying that. That's Shy Sox fan Mike saying that in this blog post for Sports Mockery, which seems to be a good outline in general. So I'm giving the guy some credit. I haven't read his stuff before, but I think as far as the fan blog, it seems to be pretty well thought out. Here are the names that I'm gonna nix. I'm not trading Quinn Matthews. I don't think I'm gonna do Cooper Jerpy as well. I think there's enough upside there that I'm willing to see it play out. Gordon Graceffo, Sam Robertson, Michael McGreevy. I'd trade any of them in this deal. Graceffo could be the one that you regret. I think Graceffo could be 2025 on the right team. That's a rebuilding team, but they need a guy in their rotation to take 30 starts. I think Graceffo has the kind of moxie to grind out in sort of a Pallante way, and it has maybe more pedigree than Pallante did, because Pallante wasn't really ever a touted prospect, but he just came up and grinded for everything he got, and next thing you know, he's throwing 98 sometimes, and you're like, oh, that's interesting. But that's kind of where I am on Graceffo, being a guy that you could throw him out there if you're the White Sox for 30 starts next year, and like 10 for the rest of this year if you trade for him. Because if you trade Fedde and Garrett Crochet, you're just going to need bodies to fill your rotation. If I'm the White Sox, Graceffo would be very interesting to me, because I can throw him out there without really any regard for if he's good or not yet, and see if he can learn on the fly. And it's great experience. Like, if I were a pitcher in that category where I was a prospect and I was minor league pitcher of the year, but a little bit of the shine is gone from me, and now I'm only up when I'm the 27th man for a doubleheader, and it's kind of like, where's my chance going to come to make a career out of this and be a big leaguer and make that big league salary and then make it again year after year? I'm looking for my shot. I'd love to be traded to the White Sox if I'm Gordon Graceffo. Hell, if I'm Michael McGreevy, maybe they want to throw me in their rotation. I think that would work for the Cardinals. I don't know if it works for the White Sox. I think they can get more in terms of regarded prospects for Fedde. But I also balked at Quinn Matthews and Cooper Jerpy. So I'm understanding where the dissonance kind of is there cognitively. If I'm the Cardinals, I'm trying to protect some of those guys that I really think could turn out. Graceffo is interesting because there is some of that shine from being a prospect. He's got a little big league experience that he's fared okay in. 30 starts next year, 4.5 ERA for the White Sox. That could be Gordon Graceffo. It wouldn't shock me. Sam Robertson, yeah, I don't really know, man. I would do it. I don't think there's similar to what we're saying with Graceffo. I just don't know if Sem has that type of cachet prospect wise. Was in the futures game last year, but he's got a 4.6 ERA in Memphis this season. A K per inning, good to see. I would do it from the Cardinals in this Fedde conversation. I don't know if the White Sox, if he moves the needle. Same with McGreevy. Tekoa Roby is an interesting one. I would also trade him. So of the 6 pitchers named here by this White Sox blog, Matthews, Jerpy, Roby, Graceffo, Robertson, McGreevy, I would say no question I'll do 4 of them, and it's all the righties. Roby, maybe I'm selling early on. I have just seen enough of his injuries to be like, if he's got that kind of value, even as he's pitching with a 6 ERA and injured in the minors this year, then more power to the White Sox if they can get the most out of him. But I wouldn't hesitate because that's a bird in the hand versus a bird in the bush. I'm taking the one in the hand, which is Erick Fedde's 2.99 ERA this year. So I would put Roby out there. I would probably do Roby and McGreevy, or Roby and Robertson. Not with Chase Davis necessarily, but maybe that's what it takes. Jerpy and Matthews I want to hold on to, I think is how I feel. Let me know, though, with those names, Cardinals fans, and are there any other names? Like, I don't think we're talking Tink Hence, but if there's any other names that you think should be considered. Like, would Ian Bedell be interesting to the White Sox? I kind of like him as a Mizzou guy, but he's now got a 2.5 ERA with Memphis and is starting to look more and more viable as he gets stronger post Tommy John surgery a couple of years ago. Is Ian Bedell now on the radar for some teams? I don't know. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. You would think that there'd be other teams scouting the Cardinals minor league system, but we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening, if anything. Erick Fedde, what do you think, Cardinals fans? We talked a little bit about him yesterday, but I wanted to add this new layer and talk about actually some names. I'm not balking at all the names on this list. I think just a couple of the entire blog, I said wouldn't trade Walker, wouldn't trade Quinn Matthews, and I would be hesitant to trade Jerpy. Everybody else, I think you got to recognize it takes money to make money, and Erick Fedde has been money for the White Sox this year. So let me know your thoughts on that. I might release this little Fedde part as its own video a little bit later on in the day. So if you happen to see that popped up on my podcast page or on YouTube after you've already listened to this video, you don't have to click on it again. I just want to make sure that people understand that there was a substantial conversation to be had about a potential trade candidate. So appreciate you guys for listening to me, though. That's going to do it for this edition of the show. We almost went an hour. Didn't mean to do that, but it happens sometimes. Cardinals lose to the Pirates. What are you thinking they're going to do against Paul Skeens on Tuesday? I'm a little skeptical. But that'll do it for this edition of the show. Get your comments in below. Hit subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time on b-schaeff Daily. Peace.